Today I'm working on a 2010 Toyota Corolla with 206,000 miles. This is going a different direction than I thought it was going to go, and so I figured I would take you along, and we're going to do some troubleshooting here because they brought it here because of a no start condition, and it's got a new battery in it. But when it arrived, the battery was pretty flat, and the alternator was testing good. I did get it started, but they brought a starter and an alternator for me to put in it. And the starter was, well, both of them, they kind of wanted to do just to check them off the list. 206,000 miles, 13 years old. They thought it'd be a good idea. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that, but in theory, it's a great idea. So at their request, I swapped out both the alternator and the starter. But the problem, one of the problems I noticed right away is that the door ajar light is on, and it's a generic light. It's not saying which door, but I'm thinking there's something else going on with it, and that's maybe draining the battery because it was really low when it came in and the alternator was working. So we're going to poke around and we're going to figure out what's going on with this thing and show you, hopefully, how to fix it. So although I'm going to investigate the door ajar light and what that might mean, before we go straight to that, I'm just going to simply test current flow with everything turned off and see if we've got what's called a parasitic draw that's draining this battery when the car's turned off. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a multimeter in series with one of the battery terminals. We're going to use the ground, and that way we'll be able to monitor exactly how much current is flowing out of the battery. And if it's an alarming rate, then we can start pulling fuses out and isolate which circuit it's coming from. So here's what I've done. I've disconnected the negative battery terminal, and having some leads like this, these are fluke leads. These are super handy for a situation like this, where you can just clamp both of these on, and I've got them hooked up to my multimeter, not a fluke multimeter, but that's just fine. And then we've switched, here's our common, but we've switched from, if we were testing voltage, over here to the current hookup, and we've got this over into a current setting. And right now we're monitoring all the flow out of this battery, and we've got almost half an amp, 0.48 amps. That is a big draw. I would expect it to be 0.1 at the highest. I've seen a lot of cars that were more like 0.03 even, but this is obviously alarming. So that will kill a battery in a couple days for sure, pulling half an amp constantly. So now we're gonna go through and we're gonna start pulling fuses out, and I'm not gonna pick favorites here. I'm just gonna go down the list and pull all the fuses out, and when it drops substantially, that's the circuit we're gonna look at. So I've been running down the fuses here, and I have discovered that when I pull this number 10 out, it drops to 0.13. I'll put it back in. There's our half an amp. I pull it out, it drops to 0.13. So that's definitely going to be the one to look at. And so if I look, the fuse I'm pulling out is that one right there, and that is the dome light. So I was right in my suspicion about that light, door ajar light, being a problem. Now the dome light's not on, so I'm not sure what's going on, but we're going to go through and we're going to see what we can figure out. So now that I know what circuit is the problem, if we look in here, it's fuse 27. And if we look down on the list, 27, dome light, 10 amp, trunk light, smart key system, and interior light. Now the interior light's not lighting up in this thing, and I'm not sure what's going on with that, but the trunk light looks like that's another thing that should be on our list. So we're going to check the door switches, and we'll check the trunk light and see what we come up with. So right now I'm in the car, and I've got all the doors closed, and you can see I still have the door ajar light on. So we're going to poke around a little bit and see if I can figure out why that light is on. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go around and just make sure that all these switches seem to be functioning fine. There's a door switch in each door jamb. So I've got a T30 here, and all these door switches are T30. So I'm going to pull this one out, and what we're going to do is unplug it and see if the light goes. I've got it pulled out here, and the wires are pretty tight. There's a little release tab there, but I know from previous experience that this circuit, there's 2 wires that come in here, and when the door is open and this switch is in the out position, it connects them. So if you push it in, it disconnects them. So a closed door is like an open circuit. So if we unplug this, it's like the door is closed. So if this had a problem and it was stuck in the closed position, if we unplug it, it opens the circuit and is as though the door is closed. So that light will go off if the switch is bad. So we're gonna work our way around and we're gonna do all 4 doors. And if any of them, if we unplug any of them and the light goes off, we found our bad switch. So I've made my way around and checked all the door switches, and they're all functional. When I unplug them, the light stays on still. So the next thing is the trunk. So I've got the back seat flipped down here, and if you stick your head in there, you can see the trunk light is on. So I think we have found our culprit. So we're gonna go investigate that a little bit more. So we're in the trunk here, and looking around, I'm not seeing any switch or anything like that down on the bottom side of the latch. So if we look up on the top side, I see wiring to release it. I am not, well, yeah, there's a 3rd wire in there. So the switch must be incorporated into this assembly. And I pulled the cover off, and I can now see that this does appear to be the trunk switch. And it looks like when you close the trunk, it moves this bar over, and it either is or isn't making contact with this brass post here. So, so right now it's open, so it's making contact. So the dome light's on, and of course we always have the dome light on, but if we latch the trunk, well, you can see it's moving that, but now it's closed, and the dome light is still on. So it looks to me like it's as simple as this arm needing to be straightened out a little bit, maybe on the end. It's maybe just not pushing it quite far enough. I grabbed a needle nose pliers and straightened that bar out a little bit, and now it is not touching that. And keep in mind, this is still in the closed position, so that's the way it should be right now, and the dome light is off. So if we'll go down to the dome light here. I'm going to press the trunk release button. And look at that. I think we have fixed the problem, and that was quite simple. That is a really mechanical switch that can be adjusted, apparently. So I'm going to put the cover back on the trunk latch here, and we'll see how we're looking with everything else. Well, check that out. Our door ajar light is now off. And I checked the multimeter, and we are down to 0.12 amps, which still seems a little high to me, but when it was at 0.5 amp, that is substantially lower. And checking all the other fuses, the only one that actually would drop it down notably is the ECM fuse. And maybe that will go into a sleep mode after 20 minutes or something like that, where it drops a bit. But I'm quite certain that I've addressed the issue here. So that was a trail I wasn't expecting to go down. And I don't know how common of a problem this will be, but if you've got issues like this, now you kind of know step by step of how to isolate the problem. In this case, this is a path that went down. Your path might be different, but if you take these steps, you'll be able to accurately figure out what the problem is and hopefully address it and be good to go. So I just wanted to leave a comment at the end of the video here, and it makes it look really easy when you just see it edited down to the actual parts of me figuring out where the problem is or where I need to go. In reality, if you're doing this, do not expect it to take you 3 to 4 minutes. It's probably going to take you an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's hard to know. And in this case, it wound up being a pretty easy fix. And it's easy if you're taking your car somewhere to watch a video like this and think like, oh, well, I saw a guy on YouTube do that in 3 minutes. Well, it doesn't work that way. And if somebody brought me this car and said, hey, my trunk switch arm is not quite bent right, it would take me 3 minutes to fix that. But when somebody brings me their car and says, replace the starter and the alternator because it's not starting, and then I wind up going down this path, I have a lot more time in it. So that's kind of two reasons I want to tell you that if you're the one doing this, don't feel like you're expected to take a little while, and be okay with that. And if you're bringing your car to a shop, expect it to take them a while. And if they're good at what they're doing, if they're good at troubleshooting, they'll be able to track it down. Some things are harder than others, but just expect it to be a lot more time consuming than this video might lead you to believe.